Welcome to Power Lunch Live. I'm Rhett Power, your host. It's good to be with you here Friday. We are almost in October, which blows my mind. The last 8 months has been really, really crazy. But the point of Power Lunch Live is to bring today's thought leaders, best-selling authors, people who are doing amazing work in the world, who we can all learn from to get better at what we do. So that's the whole reason we're here. It's good to be with you. I've got a fascinating person for us to talk to today. Now, if you like the program, give it a like or share so that your network can benefit from these conversations, and of course, so we can grow our audience. Now, we are broadcasting on LinkedIn Live, of course, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. If you want to ask a question, we monitor all those channels, and please do ask your question. We will throw that to our guest. Because that's why we're here. We're here to get your questions answered. So we monitor those throughout the program today. So please do interact with us. Today, like I said before, I call him NK. I think that's how he likes to be called, what he likes to be called. But his name is Mohammed Elkhamissy. Mohammed, sorry about that. And Mohammed is an interesting person in a lot of ways. His company and the project that he manages has done over $1 billion in sales, and he does it while he's sort of stayed true to himself. We're going to talk about his journey today to success. We're going to talk about mentorship. We're going to talk about challenges. We're going to talk about how to overcome the challenges that we all face in life. And we're going to talk about it in doing all that by staying true to yourself and actually following what's really important to you and not compromising your beliefs and who you are. Mohammed, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, it's a real pleasure. So talk about, we were talking about before we came on today, and I thought it was a really good thing to really start with. And I'm not going to ask you the traditional question, who you are and what you do. You can talk about that however you want to talk about it and intersperse it amongst the question, because I think it is important for people to understand you've been wildly successful in construction and construction management. And in fact, you're helping get ready for the World Cup in Qatar. That's a fascinating in and of itself, because we have a soccer family. So my kid, I think he's going to go to college on a soccer scholarship. So we are definitely a soccer family. But so I could talk to you all day about just that. But anyway, but I want to talk about the importance. One of the ways that we were talking about before we came on was how you got an incredible mentor when you were really young.
Right.
And in my view, it probably shaped your career and where you got to. And I mean, it was really sort of a form of sponsorship in a lot of ways, right?
It was.
Can you talk about that and how critical that was to where you are today?
Well, see, when I was in Georgia, I graduated as a Mohammed during September of 2001. And so obviously I didn't know, but no one was going to take my calls, and I thought if you graduate, this is the ultimate thing, to go to the US, get your degree, and then you should become a billionaire. But it didn't have no one call at all. It was really, really tough. And then I started doing small gigs in construction and real estate just to try to make money, but I basically lost a lot of money. Until I met, through a friend through soccer, by the way, it was through soccer, I met someone called Gerard Blonder, and he was called the godfather of apartments back then. He was a very prominent apartment developer, and he was a very prominent, Jewish in the Jewish community. He was like a leader. So I want you to imagine how that was, so going from no one wants to take my call, then all of a sudden he wants to talk to me. And so when I went to sit with him, he kind of took me in, and he basically not only shaped the way I think of business, but also a lot of my family values, how he was with his family, how he was with charity. Back then, everything were checks. It was amazing to me when I was young, when I would go up, when I would drive to a little Honda Civic to the synagogue, and I'd actually go, knock on their door and say, "Here's the contribution for this year," and I'd be like, "Yeah, this is Mohammed, I'm out." It'd be crazy, and it's insane. And you don't realize when you're younger, you're just full of like, wow, this is so cool. So I used to emulate him, and I used to see how he used to function. And honestly, a lot of what I do today is still, I want to say, governed by his kind of laws that he taught me. So that's a very important thing to have. And if people seek mentors or get fortunate to find them, I think it's a really important thing. I really do. You can't find it in business school. You can't find it in books, except the day-to-day interaction with someone like who's a mentor for you.
How did you find somebody? I mean, how did you do that? So I mean, there is a.
I was actually I was really down, and I was thinking of actually quitting and going back. And then a guy told me that there's this company that's actually taking in interns, and he knows someone. But it just happened to be that he, as Gerard Blonder, would actually meet the people himself. Mm-hmm. And then we just hit it off. And so I was actually, when I worked with him, I was working on his tax side of things, okay. as with the tax attorney as an intern.
Okay.
For him. You see, so I think it was like a program or something that he had, and then we just hit it off. And then I was with him all the way until the end, until he died from cancer. And I was very, very, very close to him. I was also very close to his son, who also passed away 2 years ago from cancer as well. But it's just a very fortunate thing for me to actually have, right. To actually see the other side and see how they actually as people function, and then. Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome.
So what would you say to people? I mean, you got that in some ways, not because of luck, but I mean, you made it happen and you made that work for you. How do you go about? What's your advice for people who were sort of feeling the same way you were feeling? Like, and I think this is a great parallel. This economy that we're in right now, right? The social issues and the justice issues that we're going through right now, the politics of right now in the U.S. I mean, and the economic stuff that we're going through right now. I mean, I bet a lot of people that were sort of similar in age and with your background, whether you're a minority or you have the name Muhammad or what have you, are kind of feeling that same thing right now, right? Like, nobody's taking my calls. Like nobody is. How do you get through that? How do you sort of keep your head not from going to to being depressed about it and feeling like there's no hope? How do you get through that?
I don't want to say something cliche like say just being positive, but the truth of it is that you just have to block out whatever is negative. So if the news is negative, block it out. If your spouse is negative, block it out. If your girlfriend is negative, block it. You just gotta keep blocking it out until you find the ground, which you can't lie to yourself and say, okay, things are good, but understand that it's temporary. But I think the most important thing is blocking out all that negativity, because all that negativity is someone else's reality, not necessarily yours. That's the thing that goes on. So when I read the paper or look at the news or hear someone else's problem, it doesn't mean it's mine. So what I did was I did that. Again, I should tell you this, but my daughter was diagnosed with cancer in the recession in 2009. So I thought I was the shit back then. So I lived in a nice house. I had a Hummer. I thought it was amazing. I had a lot of real estate, and then the recession hit. Obviously real estate was hit first, and then in 2000, and I was self-employed. And in 2009, she was diagnosed with cancer, and they didn't even know what the cancer was. They told they called it an undifferentiated tumor. And so I went from this to my last $3,000 to all the properties being foreclosed. But the way I got through it was I just blocked everything that was negative. If anyone wanted to talk to me about how hard things were, I just didn't want to hear it. If someone says to me, "This is temporary," I was through the first recession, the .com recession. I had that conversation. But see, a lot of people undermine how much that negativity actually kills you from the inside. It's a mindset, right? It's a mindset. Like whatever we're going through right now is not going to be here for 20 years. COVID, whatever comes next, it's just a temporary thing. You see what I mean? So your timeline is still going to move. You just got to realize that. But if you want to get stuck on negative, you're going to just stay there forever.
Yeah.
You see, so that blocking that negativity is it's a very difficult thing to do, especially if it comes from people close to you, like in your circle. Yeah, this is not to take away that, the harshness of losing a job, losing a business, being in debt, being foreclosed, going bankrupt. It does exist. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. But again, it's still temporary. So you have a choice. Do you want to face it? Or do you want to sit and dwell about it? And by the way, there's like 99% of the people will sit there and want to dwell about it with you and want to talk negative or feel bad for you, or then you just become a story. And then just time goes on. But there are others that just say, okay, it is what it is for now. I'm going to bounce back. Now, bouncing back, the other thing is that people always want a roadmap to bounce back. Like, so how do we bounce back? You don't know where, this is a new norm that we're in, right? No one knows what comes next, right? So all you got to do, if you get your mindset right, that this is temporary, no matter how bad it is, I think you just wait and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Well, how do you, because I think what you're saying is that you don't ignore it, you deal with it head on.
100%.
But you don't let the circumstance drag you down. You deal with the circumstance, but you don't dwell on the circumstance.
Exactly.
How do you do that? Like, I mean, like, how did you? Because I think that is easy to say, right? But how do you practically sort of put those things aside or separate them so that it doesn't drag you down?
By being practical in a way, like I've always been a dreamer that I'm going to get somewhere or do something, but I'm also practical. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm also practical in like, this has to be temporary. It can't be like this forever. So, so someone will say, but I have to foreclose, my credit score is this, or I lost this job, this people know, now I've got this divorce. I get all that. It's actually there. But in your mind, you have to understand that it's just, I treat life like a soccer game, right? So I say, I train. You know what, it's easy for me to say to you today, mindset, but that's 15 years in the making or 20 years in the making of me working on that, trying to understand what that means, what's mindset, how do you get to that right mindset? And if you train for it, and then, Tom Brady didn't just win one Super Bowl and just say, okay, I'm done, right? Nor did he, you know what I mean? So if you treat life as that game, and you win some, you lose some, you come back and just keep going at it. That's why I really like the idea of living life as an athlete, just forever, except that you don't retire. That's the mindset I always remember. Yeah, like you've got that infinite, unlimited amount of steroids. That's the way I treat it. Unless you are convinced that this is the end. If you've got this secret, something that that this is the end, like that's a different conversation. But I know it's not the end. It's not the end. So it's just a very, very harsh reality that we're in right now. But it's gonna pass like everything else. Everything else has passed, right? Wars and everything else has passed.
I mean, I think the challenge, and I love that analogy of sort of living your life like an athlete, because what you know is there's another game in next week,
Correct.
right? So
Correct.
even if we have an awful day, you got to you got to be at the end of that game. You got to be pissed off for a few minutes, right? And that's actually healthy because champions hate to lose,
right?
But at the same time, you say, okay, I mean, it didn't go our way today. Somebody's got to win. Somebody's got to lose. I got to get ready for next week.
If you view life as a game, and this is a stadium, if you look up and there are fans, they're the envious, they're the haters, they're the lovers. It's life. It exists. So when you feel, there are people who are like so happy that you lose. There are others that want to cheer for you. There are others that want to support you. There are others that hate you. It's true. But that's why I'm saying the training part of things and the hard work should never be diluted. You know what I mean? So we've gone through a 10, maybe 12-year period where, these companies are like, where's the next unicorn and where's the, we've lost the script of what's hard work and what's the right thing to do. You know what I mean? We've fallen into this, like, what's politically correct and what's the, we're getting caught up in all this media stuff versus what's right. Just what's right. And what's right is always right. It's never going to change. What's good is always good. So I can see all this. We can talk about social injustice. What's right? Just tell me what's right. Don't tell me what one incident does. We've lost that. We've lost that script. We're hiding behind all these cliche or titles or whatever it is. But just tell me what's right. And doing what's right is always what's right. And so, and as an athlete, if you train and eat well and sleep well and do the right thing, you eventually get there. It doesn't matter what sport you're in. Mike Tyson is coming back.
Yeah.
Because Mike. You know what I mean? So people forget that. Why is he coming back at 54? Because he can. But he's lived his life a certain way. Then his mindset turned. I watched him on Joe Rogan. He says he said the gods of war called me back to fight. Some crazy thing like that. But that's Mike's thing. Everyone should find his.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, and I think I don't know if he should come back at 54, but I think you have to appreciate that warrior mindset because I still feel like I'm 20, and I feel like when I'm out there playing with my 17-year-old, I'm still 17.
Right, exactly. But that's a decision that you make, right? And that decision is not just one decision. It's how you live, how you eat, how healthy you are, how you control your stress, right? So again, it goes back to that. If you decide to live as an athlete, it's not just one thing. It's not one thing that I do that's right. It's a very wholesome approach.
Yeah, it's a holistic. Yeah, you're right. It's very holistic. It's in everything you do. It's everything that makes you be able to get out on that pitch and perform. I mean, if you're not doing the practice, if you're not eating well, if you're not sleeping well, if you're not doing, it's the basic stuff, right? It's the we call it I call it the fundamentals, right? If you're not doing the fundamentals, then you're not gonna be able to do it.
And what we've fallen for right now is like, all right, there's no more sports. So I don't need to be an athlete no more. Like what we're talking about is like, it's the end. Like someone told us, someone came out and said, okay, this is the end.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a lot of people are pivoting to that, which is a very, very scary place. It's really dark.
You talk about being uncomfortable in your path to true growth. What do you mean by that? And how do you get uncomfortable? What does that look like?
It's very uncomfortable. Every time I get comfortable in anything, whether it's food or travel or work or money, I always say to myself, it's time to remember what it was not too far along. So I get uncomfortable again. It's part of that training. You see what I mean? So we've been very comfortable in everything by saying the right thing, by hiding, so I try to find that friction every once in a while. I'm like, oh, this is getting too comfortable. Let's go pick a fight. even if I'm picking a fight with myself.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, you can fall for something that's lavish or the comfort of a job or the security of a relationship. I say you should always challenge yourself to become uncomfortable. It gives you that immunity. So I would travel last Christmas. Yeah, last Christmas, I traveled to India. The purpose of the travel to India wasn't a vacation because I just wanted to see real poverty. I wanted to see real poor people, like people that are actually struggling, so that I don't whine about the pain that I had from my dentist, which is what I'm doing. I realized, like, man, why can't they just fix this? Like, what, I have the means for it. I don't want to be in this pain. And then I just realized that I've become a whiner. So I'm like, I'll go see people. And I wasn't there to do good, so people don't think I'm saying that. But I just wanted to see how poor people actually function. That trip just brought back a sense of reality for me. That's what I mean. And it was very uncomfortable. It was extremely uncomfortable. That's what I mean by that, being uncomfortable. Never if you stay in your comfort zone too long, it's going to be a problem. Because once something bad happens to you or negative, you just drop so fast because you're not trained.
Yeah. What you also talk about in your work about knowing where the exit doors are in any room. So what does that mean?
He taught me that. Everything that I do, he told me, he find the exit in anything that you do. So if you're drinking, make sure you don't get drunk. If you're in debt, that debt won't get you bankrupt. If you're in love, don't be in too much love. So there's always an exit. Find your exit. So it's the safety net. It's on everything that you do. And if you eat, don't indulge. If you hate, don't hate too much.
Doesn't that limit does that limit you in some way?
It's conservative in a way.
That's putting the brakes on love, or if you're always looking for, and I'll put it in this kind of context. So I never go into a business that I've been in several with an exit strategy. I think that what that does, at least for me, is it sets me up for thinking there's an easy way out. And to me, that is almost admitting defeat from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think? I mean, everybody's got a different take on that. And I'm not saying that that's wrong or right. I just think, to me, having an exit makes it easy for you when things get tough to say, well, I'm done. Let me go for the exit. And
I can see that. But the way I'm thinking of it is different. I'm saying the idea of going all in, or the idea of follow your passion versus follow what you're good in. The idea that, taking all risks to us like suicidal. Like we've kind of championed that, which is not really real. I don't know who has. So we'll talk about Airbnbs, we'll talk about all those guys, but those guys didn't really go all in, where it was like, I'm gonna get annihilated. Yeah. And so we kind of champion that. That's what I mean by the exit. So I'm not, yeah, sure, go hard, but not to the point where it's like it's a breaking point. Especially if you've got others that are depending on you too. That's pretty selfish. So there's no point in being a starved artist. There's nothing cool about that. Just because this is your passion, that's not cool. See, I have a view. When we used to during Dana's cancer, we used to go to these rooms where they do chemotherapy. And every time I go to the chemotherapy room, it would have a sign on the door would say, "This room has been sponsored by such and such family." Right. Like, man, that's so freaking cool. I'm like, man, so don't tell me money is evil. That is so cool because that money is treating my daughter. So as I say, you've got a duty to be successful, not just on a money level, but even if it's knowledge, if it's like helping someone, so you can't be selfish enough and say, my passion is to play the guitar. I'm gonna starve and die. See what I mean? That's not right. I don't think that's right. But because we started championing that. Like we started, these books, and the media made that. But who do you know from the very successful people was completely suicidal? And beyond, I'm not talking about those that are extremely talented, which 99.9% of us are not that talented, right?
Right.
That's what I mean by that. So I agree. The exit is not about you just exiting as soon as it gets tough. But the idea is, don't be a starved artist. Be the best at what you are really good at, and have a duty to society and everyone around you to become successful. So, and I guess success is not just money.
Yeah, no, the success can be defined in a lot of different ways, and I think that's a wholly personal kind of thing, right? What's right for you is not necessarily right for me, and vice versa, right? It's we're going to define that individually, I think,
right.
No doubt. How believing in limits is actually the thing that's limiting you?
I don't believe in any limits, period.
Okay.
I don't believe in it. I think I also don't believe that there's a call that's going to come in and change your life.
Right.
And like that one call that never comes, it's always a shitty call. It's never a good call. Right? No one ever gets that call. It's like, I'm ready. You're gonna be that next thing. It's always no. It's the opposite, right? But having said that, going through my daughter's cancer, when everyone told me it was the end, even the doctors themselves said it was the end. And when they told me that she wouldn't be able to walk, and it was just a pure fortune that on my way out, when I heard the news, someone said that there was a guy down in Jacksonville that does this proton radiation versus the normal radiation. Back then the radiation was like, it would annihilate the cancer in every part of the body,
right? Versus
proton is more laser. And so we drove down to Florida on a chance. So that's why I don't believe in the limit. And I met the guy, I met the doctor. I did my whole sales pitch thing, like, you got to see my daughter, and she's here with us today. So I don't believe in these limits. So I just work really hard, not expecting the results. So even if the results fall short, I just go hard again of my expectations. But there's no limit, so I want to live to 100 and be the best. And whatever that best is, it just keeps changing for me. I don't care. And I don't want anyone to come and tell me, dream less. You dream less. That's your thing. I don't want to dream less. I do this podcast with you. I don't know what to expect out of it, but maybe something amazing comes out of it. So I go all in it.
Right.
So you see what I mean? But I'm all in it. So maybe something amazing happens out of it. So I don't like the idea of limits is annoying, and the idea that you were expecting results is also depressing. You see, so going back to the athlete part, it's I know it sounds contradictory, but think about it. If you
right.
hard to win that game, and if you lose in that game, it's depressing. But if you go all hard and it's like, I'll accept whatever result comes and I'll go again the next day, then it just stays with you for life. So whether you get sick, you go bankrupt, you lose a wife, whatever happens, you've got that mentality. That's why I don't believe in limits, and I don't believe in waiting for results.
No, I think that's a great way to think about sort of life in general, right? I think you're absolutely spot on when you talk about that limit. When you put those limits and I think a lot of people fall into that trap, right? And so I appreciate that as sort of a way to think about life and how to sort of overcome the things that life throws at you, because it throws some curveballs at you, and that's a guarantee. That's a guarantee. And so, talk a little bit about your daughter. How did that change you when she was going through that? How did that change you?
Well, I was cooking. I said this story many times, but I got home. The only thing I know how to cook is pasta.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was cooking pasta, and then my wife called me. She said, I took Dana in because her belly is bloated. I'm like, okay, Call me back when I'll finish this and just let me know what you guys are gonna do. She calls me back and she says they found a tumor. I don't even know what a tumor was. I'm like, okay, remove the tumor until I come back, I'll change, I'll come over there. She's like, no, this is cancer. You know, at that point, at that age, because it's pretty young, when you hear that, it's like your entire world goes upside down, because you're much more accepting with older people than it is with especially babies that she was 2, so she didn't know what was going on. And then you go through the entire. It is very dramatic, just like whatever you think it is. It doesn't just take the wind from your sails. Like you can't even see it. You can't breathe, because this was also during the recession. So I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna go bankrupt as a self-employed. Remember back then, self-employed didn't even have insurance. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna lose everything, and I may also lose her. You know, and I had an older son. Try to explain to him when she started to lose her hair. You know what I mean? So it takes a split second. I drove into the house in a Hummer, H2 blacked out, thinking I was the next, Jay-Z, to get a call. And that's what I mean by that call, which is like, I'm the wimpest of wimps, because now I just want to sit and cry because I don't know what to do. You know, especially with just me and my wife. And so you go out, when you go through the ups and downs of all that. And then you meet the good people, like meet the people that were really there for you. Then when she's around right now, and you're like, so it does shape you, the way you think of things, because like you go from like lights off, lights on, lights off, lights on, and then you're like, oh, okay, so I have no control on this thing. I just have to deal with it. And that's what people think the 401k or insurance or that first $1 million or this job or this degree is their security. If I can do this, I'm all good. But then someone calls you and says, it's flu season and some bullshit called COVID is going to bring everyone to their knees. Right? And you got to wear masks in meetings and do weird stuff and say, it's like, what? It's just, we're dying from a flu in 2020.
Company you've been part of for 15 years says we're out of business because of this.
Yeah. So that's once you deal with life and death, you appreciate it so much, and you're like, man, I like to glorify the happiness and the wins a lot more than I like to glorify the L's. And we're in a society right now where the L's are so glorified. It's like, can we just talk about the good stuff when it was just a good day? When it's just the sun came out and just nothing happened, right?
Yeah.
Right now, we're in this gloomy place, and it's like, no. But honestly, that's what happened with my daughter. It's like I realized I have no control or anything. I realized that I just have to keep going, just march on, and just accept whatever comes. And I at the end, I was like that. And I think the other thing too is, man, you gotta make sure you surround yourself with the right people. And my wife was there, so she shared the same mindset. I mean, if this is the end, this is the end. We'll see what happens, and we're just gonna. So that's a very important thing, and that's why I said in the beginning, I was telling you to block out all negativity. Making sure that you have the right partner, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it is, that shares that mindset with you is so important.
I think that's a great way to sort of wrap it up, MK. You're absolutely right. I think that we are looking at things that are happening today, maybe in the wrong sense. I think maybe we should be celebrating what is so good about life, so good about being here, right? And being on this journey, and often get caught up in the negative when we should be thinking about this is whatever our circumstance is temporary. And so I think, thank you for that. I think it's a great reminder of a way to think about life in a more positive way. So thank you very much. How can people find you online?
I'm on MK20. I'll send. You can put in the show notes. I'll send you the links right now, and on Instagram as well. It's on my website. They can reach out to me. I'm looking to work with people right now on my journey to give back. I'm looking for young entrepreneurs or older entrepreneurs, just anyone that's starting something new, since I had the opportunity of starting a million times over, I want to help those that are starting to, I don't want to call myself an angel investor, but I am in a way functioning as an angel investor. So I've got a website. You can go to our website, you can fill in just a few questions about what you're trying to do from a business perspective, and I'd work with anyone that's going through a hardship. I'm still willing to talk to them and tell them, how to deal with it psychologically and all that. But it's all my website.
Thank you. And we'll put the website in the show notes. And thank you so much for that. You guys have a great day. Thanks for being on Power Lunch Live. You can find our schedule coming up next week at powerlunch.live. Powerlunch.live. We've got a great schedule for you next week. And you can find out who we've got coming up even next month. So visit our website. And have a great weekend. We'll see you back on the program Tuesday at noon. Have a good weekend.